Welcome back to Empowered. I'm Elizabeth Namofsky. On today's episode, we're discussing how courage is the key to success. Now, Kim, before we went to break, you were talking about all these different things, value and success, but how do we actually define success?
So this is the thing, Elizabeth. How we define success is very different for everyone. And probably one of my favorite quotes is by Maya Angelou, who says, success is liking who you are, liking what you do, and liking how you do it. So I like to just substitute the word like for love, because even in my own definition, I want to love who I am, love what I do, and love, how that plays out. So what I've done is over and throughout all my research is put together what I call my value thruple, which is a model which is a three-way between who you are, how you live, and what you give. And using this as a foundation for defining success. So I'll go through the three parts of it shortly. But where a lot of, going back to the previous question, where a lot of people, maybe they look successful on the outside, but it's not playing out in their lives. It's typically because they haven't necessarily captured all of these three areas. So they don't know their own self-value. They're not sure or aligning their life to how they're playing out in accordance to their own core values. And they don't really understand fundamentally the value that they then deliver to other people. And it's that gap between, who fundamentally you are, how you live, and what you give, and what society expects. That gap is actually the most crippling part of it. So by having a definition and in these three areas, what I find is it allows people to start closing those gaps so that they can start to work towards not only value, but how they can feel more successful. And it's quite mind-blowing. It is not easy and it does take time, but it really is a valuable exercise to do. And Elizabeth, so few people do it.
Well, of course, because a lot of people don't think about, working where they are and then their personal life and when they are. And you're right, there's a huge gap. So can you please walk me through each section of your value thruple model, starting with identity, please?
Absolutely. So your identity is really who you are. And whenever I'm researching women and success, the first question I ask is, so who are you? And can I tell you, there's only been one person ever that has answered that question immediately and confidently. And it was actually a very, very spiritual person who had a very spiritual answer. Most people can't answer. But when I'm looking at your identity, we're looking at who are you? What makes you tick? What lights you up inside? What is your purpose? What is your why? How do you really want to show up in this world? Your likes, your dislikes, your beliefs. There's a lot to unpacking it. But when you really understand who you are at a core level, and not just a job title or a role. So a lot of people will say, well, I'm a mum, or I'm a lawyer, or I'm, I don't know, a daughter or a sister. These are titles and roles that we play, but they're not who we are at the core. And this is why a lot of people don't do it, because it actually is really hard and it changes over time. So when you can really dig deep, look inside you, because all of this is an inside job, and look at what really makes you tick from the inside out. Define it. And I'm a big person for writing it down. Wow, this is where, this opens up the floodgates to working out your identity and then how that's going to play out in your life. So that's the first part of the model.
So we've got about a minute 30 before we go to break. I want to talk about ideals because that's part of the thruple model.
Yeah, so ideals is really, this goes back to how are you living your life in accordance to your values? So these are your real core values. And this is not a new concept. This is a concept that's been thrown around forever. But do you know how few people know what their values are? Or even if they know, they don't have them written down, they're not clear, and they don't live by them. But this is the stuff that just takes place. It's your highest priorities in life and the values that you live by. And to be honest, when you're not living by them, when something feels wrong, when someone does something and it agitates you or it frustrates you, it's usually because it's rubbing against your values, and understanding them, having them written down and living them out, it is a deal breaker.
So we have 30 seconds left. Let's talk about impact.
The impact is, what do you do? How do you use your gifts and your challenges, your talents, to face challenges and to impact others, to be valuable in other people's lives, either through the work you do, through the roles that you play, or through just showing up as who you are. Most people, when I say, what do you want to do? They say, I want to help people. But what does that really look like? What work gives you meaning? And that whole great resignation that we've all just come off the back of was
Perfect time
people
to go to
wanting.
break. Hold that thought, Kim.